Hello, I thought on this video I would share on how I actually recovered or cured, whichever way you want to describe it, my tinnitus or tinnitus, depending whereabouts in the world you're from. So a quick short story on how I actually developed tinnitus. I was under a hell of a lot of stress for quite a long period of time. Didn't do my health any good, and I suffered a concussion, a freak accident with a brick. Hit me on the head. Everything seemed fine. I carried on the day as normal. I went to the gym that night and went to bed, and I woke up early hours of the morning with severe concussion symptoms. I couldn't look at light, I had a splitting headache, everything, it was just horrendous, and I had ringing in my ears. So I took some tablets, paracetamol, and thought, I'll sleep it off, go back to bed. Tried to get back to sleep, woke up again a few hours later, still exactly the same. So went to the hospital in the morning, just said that I'd suffered a concussion, and sometimes it can come out later rather than straight away. And I was recovering from that. It was the headache that was the main problem to start off with. But as that started to subside and I could start looking at light in the TV and things again, I noticed that I had a constant ringing in my ears, particularly my right ear, and my left ear was really hypersensitive. So, as you do when you're under high stress situations and things like that, anxiety problems, you start to ruminate on it, which is probably the worst thing that you can do, especially when you get tinnitus. You start to focus on it all the time. Now, if most people think back through their lives, every so often you'll get a high-pitched ring in your ears, and things like that, and you think, oh, what the bloody hell's that? You'll rattle your ear, and it'll pass in a few minutes, and you just forget about it, get on with your day, you get on with the rest of your life. But when you get something like that, and you start to focus on it, your body's on high alert, and it's sensing that it thinks that there's some danger, so it actually increases your hearing sensitivity. So you start to focus on the sound more. Now, there's a lot of different explanations of, where tinnitus comes from, what it actually is, what the noise is. And the most common one that I've found is it's that your body is on such high alert, it's listening out, constantly listening out, because you're in danger. The more you focus on the tinnitus, it thinks there's a danger about, and you're actually hearing your actual internal nervous system that's flowing through your ears. Now, there is some exceptions to that rule. Obviously, loud noise, damage over time, things like that. But the most common one is, the hypersensitive listening, high alert, listening to this sound that you just become suddenly obsessed with. Now, for me, it was absolutely horrendous. I focused on it so much. I thought that this is it for the rest of my life. There's no way I can live like this. I'm going to have this ringing in my ears forever. And I could hear it everywhere I went, absolutely everywhere. It was in quiet places. I used to try and distract myself with sound and the TV, but my brain would automatically just focus to it, became so obsessed. And that is the case with a lot of people. 95% of people, it's the obsession with it. Like I said, there is a few exceptions for certain conditions. People have tumour that can grow in their ear and think, in their ear, the other side of the brain and things like that. But majority of cases is just the hypersensitive, hyper-focusing on the actual sound that normally, when we weren't hyper-focused on it, or if we weren't in an anxious state or highly stressed, that we would, as brain would just think, there's no danger there, and it will filter it out. So a good example of how your brain can filter things out is, have you ever been sat in a crowded place like a restaurant or a party or something like that, and everybody's talking all over the place, but you have a conversation with someone and your brain filters out all that background noise, and you can just have a conversation, and then you'll hear your name mentioned over, and your brain will pick it up. That is how sensitive and clever your brain and your hearing system actually is. So it's basically you're hyper-focusing on the sound. Now, that doesn't solve your problem. How did I cure mine? Well, first off, I did the biggest mistakes I ever did, which was start joining lots of Facebook groups, tinnitus groups and things like that, reading, Googling. Now, my first advice for you to do is to drop all the Facebook groups. They are so toxic. There is so many people on there who just cannot get over the fact that they got tinnitus, and they're obsessing on it all the time, and they just can't learn to start to let it go, which I'll explain how you do let it go. It is 100% possible. Believe me, in the early days, I didn't think so, but I'm living proof today, along with loads of other people, once you start doing the proper research. So get rid of all the Facebook groups. There's a lot of trolling on there, but there's people who are just obsessed, and they're going to say, oh, I've had it for X amount of years and it's still the same, and I can't live my life like this. And people saying, oh, don't drink caffeine, don't have salt. I'm sure that yourself that you've heard many of these things, and some things that you believe. Start again. Get rid of all that. Get it out of your head and start again. Now, I started watching a very, very good YouTube channel by a guy called Julian Cowan Hill. I recommend that you look at his videos. He's a doctor, and he recovered himself from tinnitus, severe tinnitus, when you listen to his story. Now, it is an older YouTube channel. He doesn't make as many videos anymore, but if you go back through his archive, absolutely amazing stories and things that you can learn to do. So I started watching that, and as you do, you go down a little bit of a rabbit hole, and you start picking up different videos and recommendations. But majority of that, I would literally stick with this guy. But I did come across one chap who wrote a book. Now, I'll show you the book. It's called Rewiring Tinnitus. Glenn Schweitzer, I think that's his name. Now, he has had tinnitus from being a child, but his is one of the exception rules, where he has Meniere's disease, which is inner ear problem, but he learnt to rewire his tinnitus to train his brain to ignore it. And that is the secret, is to rewire and retrain your brain into not thinking that it's a threat. So, how did I do it? Well, first off, what you have to do is accept that you can get rid of it. You say to yourself, I can learn to get rid of this, or I can learn to live with it, if some people want to phrase it a different way. But I told myself, no, I can train my brain into ignoring this. It's sound that's there all the time, and your brain's just filters out all the rubbish. I know I can do it. So the basic premise of the book, and the book goes really into detail of how he learned. It goes into his past story, and probably do a lot of things that we all do. Like, we'll sit in a quiet room and try, listen to, is it louder if I am in a quiet room, or if I'm in this room? All the things that you've probably already done that I did, all the wrong things. So the basic premise of the book, and what I started to do is, and I used to do this at night time when it was really quiet. So you sit in a quiet room, turn your TV off, no radio, no nothing. And what I would do is I would sit, excuse me, I would sit in a chair, and I would close my eyes. And then you hear, the first thing you hear is obviously your tinnitus, because it's the first thing that your brain's going to focus on. So then what you do is you then think, right, I'm going to listen. I'm going to actually listen to my tinnitus. Don't be afraid of it. It's not going to kill you or anything like that. Now, most people are going to be fearful of listening to it, thinking they're going to make it worse. Believe me, it doesn't. You have to listen to your tinnitus. Calm, deep breaths. It's not a threat. It's just a noise that your brain is going to learn to filter out. So then close your eyes and listen to it for about 30 seconds. And then if you live in a common household, there's lots of different noises, like your fridge, freezer will be running, or you can hear a ticking clock, or whatever it is. So what you then do is you think, right, I'm going to focus on a different sound. And the first thing I would do is listen to my clock. It would be tick, 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 and I would just try and focus on the clock ticking sound. It's a bit difficult to start off with because your tinnitus was there, but eventually your brain will listen out for the sounds. You say, right, 30 seconds, I'm going to listen for a different sound. And then I would listen to my fridge freezer humming, and I would just focus on that one sound. 30 seconds, then I would say, right, I'm going to listen to my tinnitus again. And then I would just focus on my tinnitus. And what you'll find is that the clock ticking filters out of your brain. The fridge freezer will filter out of your brain, or whatever sound it is that you'll find. Try and find 2 or 3 different sounds that you can listen to. Even if you set a ticking clock on your, like, go to YouTube, there's plenty of like ticking clock sounds, you know, little things. It's just a little sound in the background. Listen to that, but keep it running and your brain will start to filter it out. So eventually, after a couple of days, weeks sometimes, depending on how good you are with it, you become really, really good at filtering out. Your tinnitus sound will start to subside and you'll listen to the clock. And then you'll filter out the clock and your tinnitus, you listen to your fridge freezer. This is my example. And then you'll come back to your tinnitus and the clock and the fridge freezer. The sound would filter out completely where you can't actually hear it. So that's the first step to do, is that. Now that's every single day without fail. And what happens is when you training your brain to listen to different sounds, you're rewiring your brain. And when you listen to your own tinnitus sound, what that does is it then starts to perceive in your brain that it's not actually a threat. And what your brain will automatically do is start to try and it will just start to instantly block out that sound. Like you're in a room full of crowded people, you're not in a threat. The sound just disappears and you can have a good one-to-one conversation with someone and literally hear that one person's voice and virtually nothing. That is the basic of it. Now, if you want to go even further, it goes into in the book where you then, once you start to master that, then I'll guarantee you that will drastically reduce your tinnitus sound. So then when that's become an easy challenge and you still maybe hear a little bit of your tinnitus, the second thing that you do is you start to imagine you start again. It's not meditation, but you'll close your eyes and you'll try to imagine like a volume knob, and it's on, it goes from 0 to 10. And what you want to do is you start to imagine that you're going to turn the dial, and that dial is your tinnitus sound, and you're going to turn it up to 10. And you'll be very surprised when you get used to it that you can actually increase the sound of your tinnitus. And then you just listen to it, nice deep breaths, don't panic. That's the main thing, is don't worry, don't panic. And then what you do is, all right, I'm going to turn it down. And the volume, you turn it down, and your tinnitus will actually start to quiet in your brain. It takes a little bit of going, I'm not going to lie to you. It's repetitive action, and you've got to do it all the time, you've got to commit to it. But it reduces the sound of your tinnitus, and you're just rewiring and retraining all those neural pathways in your brain to start to ignore that sound that every single person on the planet actually has. It's just, remember, you're hyper aware and you're listening to your internal nervous system flow past your ears. Now, in the meantime, there is one recommendation that I would do. Now, this is UK only, obviously. Now, in your own countries, I'm sure there's going to be the similar, but there's a very, very good tinnitus charity in the UK. I'll link it down in the notes below. It's called the Tinnitus UK Charity, as simple as it is. It's a free phone number. You can phone them anytime during the day, office hours, and they are very, very good people. People have experienced it themselves. They'll tell you all the truths, the myths that surround it, you know, like your high intake of salt. I went through all that. Caffeine, try cutting out caffeine, cutting out salt, certain foods, you know, that you pick up on these groups and things like that. It's a load of bollocks, if you're pardon my French. You've got to get rid of all that rubbish, but I would definitely recommend to phone this charity. Very, very nice people. They'll stay on the phone with you as long as you want. Any questions you have, any worries you have, you phone them as many times as you want. I found them a very, very helpful tool in the early days, and I couldn't thank them enough. So, in conclusion, watch some of Julian Cowan Hill's YouTube videos. Exceptionally good. Grab this book. It's on Amazon. Very cheap. It's a very, very small read. Easy read. One of the best things that you'll ever get. And stop worrying. Don't worry about it. You will get rid of it. And you keep telling yourself that, and you'll recover a hell of a lot faster than most people do. People have it for years and they obsess and they just cannot let it go. So I've been there. I do sometimes still get the sound. If it's really quiet or if I get in a bit of a stress state, but I now know that it's not dangerous and I can just forget it, go to sleep and wake up as normal. It doesn't bother me at all anymore. Even when I do get like a spike or whatever they call it, doesn't bother me. Just ignore it, get on with my day, and you'll find that it won't bother you either. So I hope some of this helps. Any questions, just leave them in the comments. I'll do my best to get back to it. You know, it's not going to be one of these videos it's going to get a ton of hits in one go. It'll probably spread out over a fair period of time, but I will keep checking in and answer any questions if anybody's got any, and subscribe to my video channel. Hopefully there's plenty of other videos on there that may help you, from anxiety, stress, diet, all the things that help me in my recovery journey from extreme anxiety, health anxiety. So again, thank you very much, and I'll see you on the next one, hopefully. Bye.